Good morning everybody. This video is about legato, particularly in scales. I wanted to put together for my students some ideas about developing your legato touch in scales, and these ideas I hope will also apply to other music, of course. So the overall advice, I guess, is practice slow and really listen. Then, more specifically, what is legato? On the piano, we need to think of whether the sounds are overlapping. So if we were to play a scale, should hopefully sound clear, but it's not really legato. If I were to practice very slowly and make the sounds overlap, then that's perhaps some way towards developing a legato sound. When it's faster, we might not have a full overlap. It might just be just a fraction of the sound, but it's quite useful to practice really slow, I think. Where you can hear the real overlap. Two things to consider there. One is the finger height. Is that harder to do if we're practicing from a really high finger height? Maybe it's okay, maybe not hard to do, provided we're very flexible. If we're quite stiff and we practice and I'm trying to be very stiff here and not move that at all, it's going to be very difficult to be legato. So I think we should be aware of the feeling of the keyboard and our adjusting movements. When I was doing, I'll do it in my right hand, I'm sort of flowing. Now I'm trying not to push down. It's very important that we don't push down, because as soon as we push down, it doesn't affect the sound and it tightens everything up. So we can, I could do my usual tests here. Is it nice and flexible? My posture isn't good. Now it's a little bit better. Flowing, can I slide like that? So I'm trying very hard not to push down on the piano. If I close my eyes, I might listen and feel better. Try my fingertips. Whoa, I let go. Now there's actually, I just found an exercise by Rafael Joseffy which uses this idea to practice scales. This is from the School of Advanced Piano Playing Exercises by Joseffy. I'll try and link it in the description box, which should be maybe down there, I don't know, somewhere. And this exercise, I just play it to you, is quite interesting because he says you practice each hand alone, slowly, langsam, legato molto, and when the thumb, I'll try and explain. The thumb is getting ready. He's written the thumb there as a silent grace note, so it'd sort of be, but you just feel the note. Feel the thumb, so I'm in position and I can feel everything's ready. Then it goes here. As soon as I've finished with the thumb, it swings around to its position there. Thumb is ready. Thumb is ready. And he goes up to the 10th note here, the third. Oh, thumb is ready on the F, so I'm really in position early. That's actually a really excellent exercise for these adjusting movements. Coming down, it's very interesting what he does, what he writes. Because he writes this is a tied note, holding the thumb to the very last minute. Holding the thumb is tied, tied. So again, I've got that feeling there. Thumb is tied. Probably it would go a little bit faster. Let's see if I can try. I'd have to build up the speed. Now I'm getting to the ones coming down where I'm going to hold them over. That was bumpy. Very slow, so the thumb is getting ready earlier and it's holding there. So I think he's practicing there something that could be quite useful for legato. So I'll put a link to that down below too. Okay, so we've talked about the adjusting movements and the finger height. If we practice from a very high finger lift, we can do that, provided we're really not pushing down. We could also practice very close. I like to practice very close. So I'm feeling the next note. And it could feel like it's rolling over the next note like a ball. Rolling over the next note when it goes faster. So adjusting movements, trying to practice slowly, listening to those two sounds at one time. Another way to think about it is a crossover point. When do our fingers transfer the sound or the feeling from one note to another? If I think of doing that on the top of the key, so I'm playing there and then it transfers on the very top, it won't be legato, but it'll have a lovely sort of detached sound. If I think maybe transferring a little bit lower down in the key, so something around here where the key is there, it's more legato. So I'm sort of crossing over down there. If I go right down to the bottom, I guess I get that hyper or super legato. When you're practicing on an upright piano, it will be slightly different because, as you know, the escapement on an upright piano does not work as well. Actually, this one's a very old piano, so I should be making these videos on my very good piano, but I'll do that later on. But you can repeat the note without the key coming all the way up. The escapement is allowing you to do that. On an upright piano, it will be less efficient, but you can still think of crossing over at the top, crossing over middle, and crossing over quite low. Now another thing to think about, so that's the transfer point. The other thing to think about is the sort of touch you use. Obviously we're trying to be flexible and not push down, not tense ourselves up. So we're probably going to have to practice slow. I'll get the right glasses on again. So the other thing to think about is the sort of touch we use. Some people would use an elliptical touch where they're going this way into the key, coming towards you, and it's sort of making a movement like that with the hand going like that. So it's a grasping movement, or it feels like my fingertips are stroking the key along, going down and into the key. It also has a little bit the feeling of picking up the note, and I can feel the soft padded part of my fingertip. I think I've got to make sure that this is all working. It might even feel good if I'm playing like Liszt, where you're drawing out the sound like that using the whole arm. Actually no, I think I need to just have that flexible and really concentrate on what's happening down here, the shape. So that's going like that. I'm drawing it towards me, coming this way. That wasn't very legato because I stopped listening. Of course, with dynamics, we have to have the key going down faster if we're louder. We'll have a separate video about dynamics and the dynamics relating to the key descent, the speed of key descent. So that's the elliptical touch coming towards you. But there's another one people use, which is one where you're pushing away like this. It's almost as if you're trying to move this part of the flesh of your fingertip away from the fingernail. So it's going like this, pushing away. That would look like this. So my finger is actually sliding along like that, and I can feel it go from my fingertip to the... I'll need to be supportive. This is very good for very clear French music sort of sound. And if you want very clear sound, it's something that's very fast and you don't have time to lift the fingers up very high. So that will encourage you to play from on the keys. And again, you can making sure my arm is behind. Slow practice method. So they're all ways of practicing slowly. When you practice fast, there's a couple of things I like to do. I like to use the idea of add a note. Obviously a scale wants to be, that should have pedal of course, but one big long gesture with all those 4 octaves coming out. I'd suggest that, again, it's probably good to start using these ideas on just 1 octave. When we're doing fast, what about the idea of adding a note? So if I have my first note, I'm going to add one. And I'm holding it super overlapped. And I'm in a good position, I'm not pushing down. Now I'll add another one. Actually, I might get my thumb ready there. So I'm feeling that. And I'll put a 5th on the top. So if I play that, is that going to help me play legato? Try it and find out. It should feel like it's one gesture. The other thing I could do is I could add a note and hold as many as I can. 2, 3, now 4. I can hold 3 there. Oh, what's the fingering? I can only hold 2 there. This is confusing. Again, I'm not pushing out. I've got 3. I've got 4. I've got 5 there. So it's sort of really overlapped and chunking like that. So that can be quite useful actually in sort of pieces of music. So if you're looking at the different sort of legato, so for example, the Mozart Guten Morgen, wie geht es Ihnen, Good Morning, How Are You sonata in B flat. That one. Do we want to have a really clear sound there? It's yeah, that sort of run in, and then do we want that clear sound contrasting with, say, that finger pedal? No. Or would I like to have a really sort of more gentle sort of sound? I've actually I haven't practiced, but if I did, I'd practice. That sort of thing there. So that's an example of where these different touches would apply. Okay, so for the practicing of your working at legato, a couple of ideas. Practice slowly and really listen. Think of the idea of overlap. You can try that with high finger lift or low finger lift. Make sure you're not pushing down and tensing up, that your arms are floating, posture is good. So be aware of your adjusting movements. There are some different exercises for this. I'll link the Joseffy one or the book to the Joseffy. You can think of the crossover point of when your fingers transfer, whether they're transferring at the top of the key, whether they're transferring down a little bit in the key, or whether they're transferring really low, which should make more of a legato sound. You can practice the different touches, not just straight up and down, but you could practice the elliptical one, drawing the sound towards you, like as if your fingers are stroking a cat or something like that. You can practice the one where your fingers are going this way. So, and you can practice fast in different ways, probably adding a note or doing little things to do that, and then see how that goes. Okay, hope that's useful to you, and I'll put as much information I can in the description box below. Okay, I'll put my hat on and say goodbye.